I've had such a weird morning. Hey, we are live. So I'm back to my overexcited beginning to the Green Umbrella Live lunch. Something is wrong with me this week. I'm saying a lot. This and that. I'm not usually an Have you ever noticed when you're speaking, like Amanda, you probably have this, you're presenting, and sometimes you're like, do you know, I'm quite eloquent. And then other times it's like every time you say, for me, it's and like. Every time I say those two words, it's like an alarm goes off in my head, and I'm just stop doing that. It's really bad practice. Don't do that when you're speaking. Don't do that when you're presenting. But there you go. So, welcome everybody to this week's live lunch. I have had such a bizarre morning. My head space is just on another planet, and I'm really struggling to come back down to ground. I interviewed someone for the podcast this morning that I was just really nervous of interviewing, but not excited nervous, just nervous. And I've done that, and I cannot wait for the episode to come out. It's such a fantastic conversation. It's someone that is just so like I'm like, if you could see the video, which you guys will be able to see the video. I don't really publish the videos, but I think this one I might have to, because I'm literally like that at the screen at this guy talking and telling his story. I'm just like, wow.
Are you a bit starstruck?
A little bit, yeah.
That doesn't happen very often with you, does it? Oh, I'm intrigued to know who it is. It's published.
Yeah. Okay, so I tell you what, it's a guy called Mark Ormerod. Go and check him out and see his story. It's just amazing, absolutely amazing. But yeah, go and have a peek. But I've had a fantastic conversation this morning, and I just feel sky high. But you know, when someone shares a story with you and it's so inspiring, it's so amazing, and the person's so cool that's telling it, and just like everything I have to do today just doesn't seem that important anymore. That's the effect it's had on me. But of course, this is important. This is important.
If anyone's got a call with you this afternoon, they'll be like, "Oh, cheers for that."
You know, I'm just in such a cool place right now. Such a cool place. Right. Anyway, we're here to do a job. We are here to talk about social media stuff. So the updates, the little things that have gone on this week, the stuff we're excited about, the bits and pieces we've been working on. And I know we've got a few things to discuss. So, Amanda.
Hello.
Amanda, you're gonna have to lead this today. I'm so distracted.
Well, yeah. I think it's because we've had such a flurry of comments to start with, which is quite unusual. So, hello Heidi, hello Matt. Lovely to see Matt. He's one of our old friends at Green Umbrella, Matt Gallivan. And there was a lot of interest in Jane's top as well.
Yeah,
that's what distracted me.
I don't know, they're little dog things.
Yeah, cool. Right, Amanda, yes. Let's come to you first. To stop me talking, tell us what you've been up to, the things you've been presenting a couple of times this week on webinars and stuff like that. So what kind of things have you been talking about? What have you been sharing with the world?
So one thing that's fresh in my mind, because I've literally kind of walked out of one Zoom into another Zoom, is webinar I did this morning for our friends Iconic Offices over in Ireland. A lovely group of people. They built a community around virtual events. So I did a webinar on top 10 social media mistakes that people make. And bizarrely, it shouldn't make a difference, because a virtual event it doesn't really matter whether you've got 3 people sign up or 300, but they had nearly 300 people sign up. And all of a sudden this morning, I was kind of, oh my word, it's a bit of a cold sweat about it. So, but you can only see like 3 people on the screen anyway, so it shouldn't make a difference. But it was nice. It's been a couple of weeks, if not longer, I think, since I've done a big presentation. So it was nice to get back into the swing of things and talk about some of the social media mistakes. So I was able to pick up on some of the most recent examples. So this week we've seen Burger King get it wrong. They dropped a whopper, didn't they?
Cha-ching.
Um,
Hold on.
very-
That means we can't do any more jokes for the next 45 minutes, right?
that's the best one, clearly. So, puntastic. So if people don't know, they did on International Women's Day, which was Monday, they sent a tweet out saying a woman's place is in the kitchen, which was part of a thread. And when you actually read the thread, it was about a program they were doing to encourage more female chefs, because I think there's a big disparity, more professional chefs are male. So there was logic behind it, but they really got it wrong, because they just had this standalone tweet, which was clearly meant to be, what we would call clickbait. So, and of course, a lot of people jumped on it going, oh no, you've just got the tone of that completely wrong. And they have since deleted it. But yeah, so one of the mistakes I was talking about in this top social media mistakes was, tone of voice, listening to what's going on kind of in the ether, the sentiment and tone around certain events. So yeah, it was great to be able to draw on a few current examples there as well. So yeah, that's kind of fresh in my mind at the moment.
Cool. Yeah. So let's talk about the Burger King thing a little bit more. So, because if you looked at the whole message in context, if it had been a blog article, let's say, you read it from start to finish, actually the message was really positive. They're sort of saying there's not enough female chefs operating, and that they want to, it's kind of a play in terms of diversity and in improving the levels there. So actually what they were trying to do was really positive. It was just the way it was delivered was just not cool. However, sometimes it's really hard to know what's going to hit and what isn't. I actually feel really sorry for that social media manager, the person that came up with the idea, the person that signed it off, because sometimes we're looking at this content through our own eyes. We know what the conversation is. We know all the background behind it. And we think this is going to be, we just don't see how it might be construed by the public, our public. And I think it's really, really difficult, especially when you're working with a topic that is a powerful message. You have to be really, really careful. But that said, we also end up in a situation, and it's something we've talked about again and again and again, and I will always beat the drum on, is the fact that this stuff comes up, and people jump on the bandwagon. On Monday, how many posts were there where it was just like International Women's Day, image of a woman, and it's like, yes, people should be celebrated. Yes, people should be celebrated. And yes, it's a fantastic opportunity to celebrate women, inspirational women, etc., etc. I thought about my mum and my two grandmothers quite a lot on Monday for that reason, and I was thinking about it, and I almost did put a post on LinkedIn, and in the end I didn't, because it's the reasons I find them inspiring are their stories to tell, not my story, not for me to tell their stories for them. But there are a lot of people that, again, it's just that jumping on the bandwagon thing. And it's a message that is, here's a reason to use a hashtag, and not actually put in any weight behind the message.
For a lot of people, like a lot of these events, it's almost a bit of an afterthought. So I can think of, I can picture there's so many companies that Monday morning went, oh, it's International Women's Day. Or ladies who work here, can
you just line up?
Yeah, if you're in the office. And so they take a photo and it basically says, look, we employ women. How good are we? You kind of think, no, if you're going to do a post about it, if there's an event, like we said, whatever it is, whether it's this, whether it was Black Lives Matter last year, whether it's, Mental Health Awareness Week, that's going to come up. I think it's May. Don't just kind of go, oh, quick, we better do a post about meditating or something. Make it relevant, talk about what you're doing. So, with the Burger King example, yes, it's great that they've got an initiative that is going to support, maybe it's underprivileged women, giving them opportunities to get into the workplace. but they just kind of got it wrong. You know, talk about, you know, if you're doing something to close the gender pay gap, great, talk about that. Don't just do the, here's some women that work in our office, you know. So one of the clients that I work with is, as you will know, Christina, is in the construction sector and house building sector, male dominated, obviously. So there were some really relevant stories to tell there, and it was good to see them. And, you know, kind of percentages of tradeswomen that are coming through now in jobs like being an electrician, being a plumber, really good stories. That's great. And like you say, I do feel a bit for Burger King, because if they had just changed, you know, maybe they'd started with a question like, you know, is a woman's place in the kitchen? If it is, why are, you know, X percentage of professional chefs men? You know, so if they just changed the wording slightly, it would have been so much more powerful. But yeah, they did just get it wrong.
Yeah, it's just so tough, so tough. I'm just going to put, Matt's just commented over on LinkedIn. So he said he doesn't need a day to understand how amazing some of the women in his professional and personal life are. So big hand raised there for you, Matt, definitely. And I think that's the thing for me. On Monday, I was, and we had the conversation. Should I tell people this? I don't know. I always do anyway. But it was like, okay, so what inspirational women do we know that we want to bring on to live lunch? And it was kind of all the people, like the people that came to mind, we've already had on as guests, because we couldn't wait to get them on. We weren't going to wait for, you know, a day to make an event of it. And I think that's the thing. And, you know, I would like to think just us doing this every week for the last, you know, almost a year now, but just doing this every week, kind of, you know, obviously Mark's not working today. He's got a day off, bless him. But I think doing this every week, it gives us an opportunity to celebrate each other as sort of, you know, professional women that know their field and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I was just a little bit, I felt a bit naughty, actually. Right.
Why?
Replace the word naughty for something like really sweary and obnoxious. But I just kind of went, do you know, it's International Women's Day. We should be celebrating women and women's rights and all this kind of stuff. And I was just like, I guess I had the same attitude towards it that I have for like Valentine's Day and things like that. It's, you know, it's just an excuse. It's just another day. It's just another badge. It's just another.
Can I? I'm going to dive in and pick up on that. You're in some ways potentially, but I think what we need to understand as well is that it's not just about us here in the UK. So there are bigger disparities. And I read a fascinating book. It's well worth a read. Called it was by Caroline Criado Perez, and it's called, I think it's called Invisible Women, exposing data bias, basically. So, and it talks about how women are bigger victims if there's war. In town planning, we're not always thought about. And it's just really small things like in car accidents, women are more likely to be fatalities than men because seatbelts are not designed for us. You know, if you're pregnant, for example, it's horrible, the statistics, but equally, you can't really test that, let's face it. But you could, you know, crash test dummies are generally built as male.
As a male
so,
figure.
Yeah. So it's things like that, I think, that for us, we kind of go, well, we know loads of inspirational women. You're totally right. But there's underlying things. There's still big data gaps. You know, women are primarily the caregivers. Things like, you know, I think it was Sweden or somewhere in the Scandi countries, they started gritting pavements first instead of roads, because when there's traffic or when it's really snowy, we kind of go, oh, we must let people get to work. But then it has an impact that people then walk more, because they don't want to drive, maybe when it's snowy conditions. They have more falls, you get more broken bones. It's predominantly women that will injure themselves because they're the ones walking their kids to school if they're still open. But also it puts a greater strain on health services. So just by changing a little thing like that, it actually had a bigger knock-on impact. So there's kind of data that's not always looked at. So yeah, so I think that's why in areas outside of ours that we still need to raise the profile.
Yeah, and I think this is the thing. It's like if it's used as an opportunity to, so yeah, if we go further afield and God, this is going into a dark place now, but in Africa, I forget what it's called now, female genital mutilation. Okay, so things like that, this is an opportunity to raise it's not and it makes me sound really ungrateful as I say this, but it's not like, oh, Christina's really amazing because she puts out all this content, fantastic. It's like, it's International Women's Day. There are still women dealing with these situations. And things like there is actually a closer to home thing. And again, I've forgotten the term for it, but it's like period poverty. And yes, we're live on a Thursday lunchtime, and I'm now talking about periods. But I'm like, why do I do this to us? I don't know. But it's things like that. It's like, why are we not talking about that stuff?
Yeah.
If we're going to use it, let's talk about that stuff. Women get a raw freaking deal. And yes, I guess I'm sitting in my equivalent of white privilege as a woman in a Western country that, works with fantastic people, mixes with amazing people. And so actually I don't know what the rest of that sentence is, but I think you get the point.
Yeah. It's about using, if you're going to use the platform, use it for good, make it relevant, not just I work with women.
Yeah, use it to do something, not just to get a few more likes.
I think
that's where my problem is.
It brings it back a bit to the conversation that we've had before about the content that some people post on LinkedIn. I think, as we've sort of said there, if you're using International Women's Day to promote something that isn't a massive cause or a massive issue, then that's a great use of it. But if you're using it, as you said, Christina, to say, obviously, for me personally, the majority of women that I have in my personal life are inspirational to me for different ways. They might not be inspirational to, I don't know, Sally down the street, but they might have overcome something that I know that person doesn't know about. Whereas I think some people post things on LinkedIn sort of, as you said, Christina, about that, like to do with your grandparents. Those stories aren't necessarily your stories to tell, but people post it for the likes, they post it for the sympathy, and I think that's the wrong way to use it.
Yeah, cool. Right, I'm going to move the conversation on because this is supposed to be all light and fun and airy and cheer people up, and there I am dragging it down again.
Oh, look.
There you go.
Please bring some sunshine and cheer.
That's it. Signs of spring. We're whole again. Yeah. Fantastic. Okie dokie. So Jane, you've been looking at sort of updates and things like that, the social media news, all of that kind of stuff. So what have you been seeing this week? What stood out for you?
A few things, not huge, but so the first one is a little while ago, Instagram did a thing where if you deleted your posts, basically you could get them back for 30 days. That was in case you got your account hacked or you just did it by accident or whatever. But I noticed this week that I had that on my own Facebook account, and I don't know whether it's the first time I've tried to delete something and that's why I saw it in a while, or whether that is new there as well. So yeah, I just was trying to delete something off my own feed that was just a pointless thing anymore, and it said, would you this is now going to be archived for 30 days. Visit your archive if you want to get it back. So I just thought that was quite handy, because if you do delete something by accident, at least now you can get it back. The next thing that was quite interesting was Instagram have just launched, literally talked about it this morning, auto captions on their videos on stories. So I've only seen one example of it so far, where you've got like when you go into stickers, there's just another little option in there for auto captions, and then it will just literally put the captions on the video. I don't know how good it is. Obviously, we've had some on LinkedIn where it's put some strange words that we haven't actually said. So
this is it's an interesting thing because it taps into the accessibility of the social media channels. So things like, so if you're watching this live now on Facebook and you're on a mobile device, there are probably automatic captions coming up as I'm speaking now. So if you've got the sound on, you can hear what I'm saying. What I'm saying and what's appearing on the captions, I'm trying to speak very proper now, so that it's really accurate. But usually we have a bit of a giggle afterwards because someone will have watched this and sent us a screenshot where the auto captions have, got Amanda talking about her bottom again or something like that, and she said button but the caption says bottom, and it's like, the auto caption's always really, really funny. But obviously these tools are there to help the accessibility. Okay, so obviously if someone was, it's not even about if someone's, deaf or blind or whatever. Actually, if you're just in a situation, you're watching this and you can't have the sound on, you haven't got a headset with you, it makes it easy for you to engage in the content live. But it never works particularly well. Now, with Instagram, what Jane's talking about here, they kind of released the change, released the edit, but it was actually a test and it wasn't supposed to be released. So I don't know where we are. I don't know if they've gone, I don't know if Instagram were testing this thing on the background and somehow it ended up being released to some users, not all users. So I don't know if they've rolled it back and removed it for people. I don't know if they're just leaving it as it is and seeing if it works or not. I've seen a couple of reports where people are saying, like, when they then go to post, the story hasn't posted. So if you have got this function, if you've got this ability to do a video story and add the captions there, let us know how you get on with it, because I'd be really, really interested. But this tends to be how the social media platforms roll stuff out. They do the tests and they just kind of do them. And if sometimes you stumble across them because they've ended up being active on your profile, they get sort of pulled back, rolled back, and coming out again, rolled back before they go out to the masses. But yeah, it's an interesting one. And I was in a conversation with someone from Radical Recruit, who Radical Recruit is a recruitment agency that works with people that are disadvantaged. So they could be there could be some sort of disability, or also things like ex-offenders, that sort of stuff. They work with candidates like that to help them find employment. And the guy I was talking to basically said he's been looking for a social media scheduler that allows you to schedule content, including alt text, including captions on video, all that sort of stuff. And the reality is there's no options out there because the APIs from the social media platforms don't talk to the social media schedulers in the right way to be able to fill that kind of back-end information. So I think the accessibility of social media, there's a long road to go from that end of it. And we talk about diversity and inclusion and belonging and all that sort of stuff quite a lot. But isn't it interesting that on just a real basic level, with all the fantastic things we can do from a technological perspective and all the scheduling options we've got out there, that actually we can't schedule an image and add the alt text on?
Yeah, it's crazy. That's
just
quite similar. Sorry.
Oversight. Go on.
It does. No, I was going to say another massive oversight in the same thing is, when you're trying to put in a hashtag and you try to write it in camel text because that is more accessible, but it tries to offer you suggestions that are not like that. It's like, why are they not like that? It's stupid. If you click down on the suggested things, they come up all in lowercase.
Yeah.
And I feel sure that's just a really simple thing to do, and yet they don't.
So everyone knows camel text is where you capitalize the first letter of every word within the hashtag. From a readability perspective, it makes it much easier to read what that hashtag says. Also, like screen readers, that kind of thing, it makes it easier for them to process that language as well. So yeah, if you're using hashtags that contain multiple words, you've got to definitely use camel text. If not, you end up with hashtags. And I think still one of the most infamous ones to date was the Susan Boyle. Was it Susan Boyle album party?
No, well, the
Something like
Boyle wasn't in it. It was just Susan's album party.
Okay.
I'm going to have
Right,
to
so
now.
Emily's like, I'm going to write that down to see what it says. So if you're kind of like, what are they talking about? Just grab your pen and paper, write it down, all lowercase, no spaces, and see what you've just written. Okay, and then you'll get it. Just remember that. Okay.
There was another one as well, which is slightly cleaner, which is after Margaret Thatcher passed away, there was a hashtag that was "Now Thatcher is dead," but people were reading it as "Now that Cher is dead." So Cher over in the States, she's still there singing her "Believe" and all the rest of it. She's like, I'm not dead. I'm still here.
Oh, I shouldn't laugh. But yeah, like I said, the Instagram thing with the autocorrect, it's, yeah, like I said, when I saw that, it just started me thinking about the accessibility stuff across the platforms, because I'd already had this conversation literally like the day before. So interesting one there. Did you have, is there anything else on your list, Jane, for this week?
Yeah, the Twitter one that I mentioned to you earlier. Basically, it drives us mad that when you put photos on Twitter, you create your post, you put your photo on, you can see your entire photo, or sometimes you can't. Sometimes you can only see a bit of it. You put one on a phone, you can only see a small bit of your photo. You have no clue what that photo is actually going to look like when you've pressed send on the tweet. And it looks different on a phone to how it does on desktop. You know, we put our images on desktop, they work fine. You look on the phone, you're like, oh, flipping out, that's cut the writing off. And there's no set standard. So I am so happy that Twitter are testing not cropping photos. So they're also going to give you a preview of what your photo is going to look like before you post it. And also, if you've got a big vertical photo, they will show the whole photo, not just a tiny square out of the middle. Because I'm sure everyone's seen tweets where you see a tiny bit of the photo and you think, what the heck is that? Yeah, and it's once you actually click on it and open it up that you see what the photo is.
It is. It's kind of like, why is that company posting an image of someone's breasts?
Yeah, because
like you open it up, there's this whole thing with this like fantastic message on, or a bloke's groin, and you're like.
I've done that before with Stephen O'Donnell. So, friend of the show and Green Umbrella. He was presenting at a recruitment conference, and it was a photo of him presenting, but yes, the preview had just again area, which was slightly unfortunate.
Oh dear, I'm writing that down. I'm going to send him a message. Hi Stephen, how are you doing? You want to watch this? 27 minutes in.
Sorry, Stephen.
Oh, fantastic! We do cover a lot of subjects in this session, don't we? Cool. But yeah, Twitter is like crazy at the minute for developments. It's like the whole development team has been asleep for the last 5 years, and they've woken up full of beans, and they're going to crack on. They're going to change everything. They're going to take on the world in about 3.5 days. So there just feels like a constant stream of things coming out of Twitter at the minute. You probably can't remember if we mentioned it last week or not, but they've released some of their roadmap, if you like, their plans for the next 12 months, and testing ways of monetizing Twitter for Twitter users as well. So they're paying creators, we'll call them creators, so that you can have access to specific content, tipping people for their content as well. So if there's someone you follow on Twitter that's always giving you loads of it, like really cool information, you can send them a $5 every now and then to say thank you, which I think is quite an interesting concept. I don't know that people are going to do it. I don't know that people would, but there is a little bit of a I do want to call it a trend. There's this quiet thing going on in the background where the social media channels they're looking at ways for normal people to monetize. So Facebook have an option where you can create essentially a membership group within Facebook where you pay to be a supporter. Okay, so they're called support. It's a supporters program. And it's always low cost. So it's like £3, £4, that kind of thing as a monthly fee. You just pay automatically through Facebook, and it allows you to be part of a group, and unique content is served into that group. That's what you're getting for that membership. Obviously, this idea with what Twitter's looking to do and the tipping, it's a similar thing again. There's a platform out there called Patreon that's been around for years and years and years. But again, it's you go to Patreon, and if you think we produce great content and you feel like you want to reward us, if we had a Patreon site, you could go to Patreon, you could sign up and just give us 20 quid a month, 30 quid a month, whatever we set it at. But essentially, it's like a monthly thank you you're doing for creators. So there is kind of a trend happening here, and with Clubhouse as well. They've released some information about how people are going to be able to monetize their experience there as well. Quite often, when it comes to social media, we think about monetizing it in terms of how do we get leads, convert those leads to sales within our businesses, and sometimes it's going to be a high ticket item. Sometimes it is something that's a retainer offering or just a one-off service. But this is kind of like, if you can get 1,000 people spending £3.50 a month just to hear from you, that's actually quite smart. So I do think there's this, like, in the background, there's this kind of quiet trend happening in terms of the social media platforms finding this way of producing this service for people that are creating good content on a regular basis. Obviously, we haven't been invited to anything like that, but it's good to know it's going on. There is another big announcement from Twitter this week. Did you see that one, Jane? Guess which one it is, the one I'm most excited by.
I can only think of the Spaces thing at the minute, but it was that one.
Yeah, so Twitter. So a few weeks ago, and I think it was on this actually, I said I think there's going to be a race to Android in terms of the audio only social media experience, so Clubhouse essentially. And I kind of said I think whoever gets there first is really going to, to be able to leverage that platform. So Twitter Spaces have announced this week that their goal is to be not only on Android, they're beta testing Android already, but they want to be fully launched and for everybody to have access to Spaces, whether you're on an Android or an iOS device, by the end of April. And I'm like, that's like 6 weeks. 6 weeks, 7 weeks? That's no time at all. But I just think that, for me, it's really, really exciting because these audio only platforms, a lot of people are still kind of, don't quite get it, not sure, etc., etc. But actually, they just offer so much opportunity if used in the right way. I'm just so excited about what that's going to bring.
Have to wait and see.
To try and control my excitement because I know, like, Amanda's like, oh, whatever. She's talking about Clubhouse again. Cool, Emily. Let's come to you. What have you been looking at this week? What have you been working on?
What have I been working on? I have been working on a lot of blogs this week, actually. I think I was sort of catching up from last week with the budget and sort of the blogs and everything surrounding that I had quite a few other bits to catch up on this week. So that's what I've been doing a lot of. But I have been looking at Instagram, as per, obviously, love Instagram. And there's a new update actually that I wanted to share. So Instagram Lite is now going to be made available in 170 regions. So for people that don't know, Instagram Lite is basically a smaller version, I guess, of the full Instagram app, and it takes less megabytes to download. So I believe, although I might be incorrect on this, it takes 2 megabytes to download the Instagram Lite app, whereas it takes 30 to download the full Instagram app. So obviously there's quite a big difference there. The whole point of it, I guess, is sort of the inclusivity aspect of it. What they want to do is create this app so that it can be downloaded in regions that may not have sort of the most up-to-date iPhone or may not have a very good internet connection, something like that. So the first place they are looking to release it, or possibly have released it a little bit, is India. I didn't know this, but apparently only 50% of households in India have access to the internet, which I thought was very interesting. Something that they've changed with this new Instagram Lite app. So they originally released it and then they sort of paused it, and now they're releasing it again. Something that they've changed is that they've added Reels to the Instagram Lite app. So anybody that has the Lite app can also access Reels. Obviously, with them releasing it in India, a lot of people are saying that they've done this purely for the fact that it's sort of they've banned obviously TikTok in India, so not purely for that fact, but that's a big element of it, that they're trying to capture that audience. But yeah, I thought it was quite interesting. It's something that obviously it brings it back to that making things more inclusive, but I also do believe that it must have something to do with the TikTok thing as well, because that just makes business sense for them to do that, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know, there's a lot of, when you look at social media from on an international basis and what's going on in different countries, we've got a few clients at the minute that are not just operating in the UK. So we're looking at, you know, what's happening, what's happening in different regions. But it's quite interesting. If we go over to Germany, for example, there's a social media platform called Zing. Now, I know next to nothing about Zing. Okay, think of it as being a German LinkedIn. That's probably the best way of considering it. So there's like this whole social media platform that is like, it's one of the core platforms over there in that region, and yet we don't even know about it over here. We don't think about it. You go to places like India where, you know, let's say that there's no TikTok over there. So there are alternatives, and that's part of the reason why Instagram rolled out I'm struggling to say this, too many R's, but Instagram rolled out Reels.
I'm glad
but you know, they did that really quickly after TikTok was removed in that region. If we look at, I think it's Russia at the minute, they either have just banned Twitter or they've just threatened to ban Twitter there, because there's a thing about some information that should have been removed from the app that hasn't been removed, like misinformation. And then you go over to sort of China, Hong Kong, etc. And over there again, it's kind of the apps that are at more of a forefront in the UK don't necessarily have the same place in terms of being a core social media platform in these other places. So it is really, really interesting when you start to look at it all on an international level. And then you also start to see, okay, so where is it? Obviously, Facebook owns Instagram, but if we think about it in its own entity, we can see them making a real power play in India as a region.
Yeah.
And you start to say, okay, well, there's all these cool developments, but actually on this platform, but they're only being rolled out in Canada right now. You're like, okay, so what's in Canada, guys? What's so special about Canada at the minute for that particular platform? And it's really, really okay. Let me rephrase. It's really interesting to me.
No, it isn't. I think I'd be curious to see what was actually involved in, or what you can access on the Instagram Lite app, because obviously this article that I was reading was making a point of the Reels update, but I'd wonder what it is that you can't access on it. I'm not 100% sure on that, so I might have to have a look and see what they think is sort of the main elements of the app.
Cool. Awesome. Amanda, let's come back to you. So is there anything else you've been looking at? Is there anything else social media wise, or any interesting questions you've been asked on these webinars and things you've been delivering that we can dive into?
Yeah, I mean, I had heaps of questions this morning. Actually, one that I might almost throw back to all of us was about scheduling posts and scheduling for different time zones. So again, thinking about kind of global audiences, if you've got, say, a post that you need to go out kind of in the UK, but then also maybe in Dubai or the Middle East, because obviously there's quite a big expat community out there as well. Scheduling tools that allow you to do that, should you do that? And the only experience I could speak from was using eClincher, which is the scheduling tool we use at Green Umbrella. I don't have enough knowledge of the other scheduling platforms to know if you can do that. So I was asked that question. So yeah, I might throw that back to any of you here to say, do you know if you can on other scheduling tools? But also tone of voice, is your culturally, you might have a tone of voice in the UK, but it might be a bit different in Spain or in Thailand or whatever. So how do you kind of accommodate that? Do you end up having 2 social media accounts? So you have kind of your UK account and you have your another location account. So yeah, I sort of answered the questions I'd received based on the knowledge I had of eClincher. But I thought it was really interesting. And as I said, I don't know enough about, so there's Hootsuite, there's Buffer, there's loads of scheduling tools out there, but because I don't use them on a daily basis, I'm not sure what their capabilities are. So I don't know if any of you guys have got enough knowledge as well, or if we're all eClincher ladies at heart.
So definitely an eClincher lady at heart. I don't remember seeing anything from a Hootsuite perspective that allowed you to schedule with the country targeting on it. Jane, have you did some comparison stuff before, didn't you? But I don't. It wouldn't have been something that was on our criteria, but perhaps we should add it on.
Yeah, I mean,
if anybody knows me in the comments, can recommend another platform that would be interesting to know, because it's not always just UK based audiences. You might have, if you're a global company, you'll have to have different audiences and sectors you want to target.
In terms of the tone of voice, though, so probably something that not everyone would know is that when you are doing a post on your LinkedIn company page, you can kind of choose actually where, if you want that post to only show in certain countries or certain regions, you can actually toggle that, you can choose that. So that kind of helps cover the tone of voice. But then depending on the size of the organization, depending on what you're using that LinkedIn company page for, I think there are arguments for having if we were going to have a Green Umbrella Marketing US or Green Umbrella Marketing APAC or Green Umbrella Marketing EMEA, I think there are arguments for that. But if your business is of a certain size and you invest in your LinkedIn company page, you can actually have a page that has a tab for essentially it has a tab for each country that you're in. So when I look at, let's say there's a US brand that has an operation in the UK, in let's say UK, Russia, Australia, Africa. Actually, when I click on that About tab on their company page, I see the UK information first. I can then toggle it, and if I want to look at Africa, for example. But yeah, at that point, you are investing. You're not using a free LinkedIn page. There are a lot of other benefits that come with having that sort of enhanced company page. People tend to invest in it when they're using it very much from a internal recruitment perspective as well. So that's when like all your employee engagement stuff comes into play as well, and employer brand and that sort of stuff. So when we're using LinkedIn company pages at that level, we're quite a big organization. I think and it allows us to do all those things and cover all those bases in terms of tone of voice, etc. If you are operating in a couple of different countries and you're kind of thinking, do you know what, we're going to have problems, then that's when I think potentially there is an argument for having 2 separate pages. But just remember, we're talking about something that's really hard to grow, takes a lot of work and effort and patience. In that situation, I would be saying, okay, we want something that's quite generalized. English as a language is spoken in a lot of countries, so we just need to keep the posting as neutral as possible, but then really invest in a targeted advertising strategy that is delivering the content that is the right voice for the right region to the people we want to engage with that content. And it then becomes very, you constantly have a series of ads running to those target audiences that are taking them through that. I need to find another word for funnel so you don't laugh at me or shout bingo.
Well, you made it 45 minutes without saying it.
I was literally going, damn. But yeah, basically, like I said, that's the way to work. That's the answer. From my perspective, that's the answer to that question.
Yeah, cool.
What was the answer you gave them?
So, I talked about what you could do with eClincher. Tone of voice wise, what did I say on that? I can't remember now. I don't actually think I got to that because we ran out of time. There was it was one of those really great webinars when there was just heaps and heaps of questions. Somebody else asked about the fact they had very non-specific audience. So they were a venue and they had people coming in that were different types of companies, some corporate, some insurance, some really fun. And kind of what tone of voice do I use to talk to them? So I was talking about the kind of what's consistent from your point of view. The reason they choose you is because of your great service or your unique venue, whatever it is. So think more about the kind of the plus points that make you different. And sometimes you can kind of address the elephant in the room and you almost merge two tones in one post. Kind of, you might be an innocent smoothie woothie type company, or you might be safe pair of hands looking after our cybersecurity. Either way, we've got you covered, kind of thing. So yeah, there are ways and means around it. I think I think you can kind of see it as a barrier, but you just have to then get a bit creative about ways to go around it.
Absolutely. Cool. Okay, so we try and keep this under an hour. We're at like almost 47 minutes now. So has anyone else got anything, or should we look to wrap it up there?
I haven't.
No.
Slightly awkward silence. Fantastic.
It's about now
Okay.
the food, isn't it?
I know.
Yeah, I know. It's like, so, okay. Inside knowledge here, guys. Emily gets really hangry. She's not happy that we do this at 12 o'clock.
Was end of life lunch. I am getting hungry.
Fantastic. So let's call it a day there. So everyone that's tuned in, thank you for joining us. There have, as always, some random things have come up during live lunch today. And if you want more of the same, we'll be back again Thursday next week, 12 noon for 45 minutes to an hour of us just hanging out, talking about the stuff we've been up to, what's popped up in the social media news, our thoughts and feelings around that. Have a fantastic week, everyone. We will see you next week, either on Facebook or YouTube or my LinkedIn profile. And now we're all going to wave so Emily can take her screenshot. Otherwise, she'll tell us off. And we've just said she's hungry. We'll see you all soon. Thanks, guys.
Bye.